everyone, and welcome to Lauren Reed Color. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to be continuing the page that we started working on in the last video, which is the Mystical Mountains page in Mythomorphia by Kerby Rosanes. So this is it. And last time we worked on the sunset sky. So if you're interested in seeing how I did that, I will link the video up at the top. And today I thought that we would move on to doing the snow. So we are currently in the winter months, and many in the coloring community are coloring snow, and therefore it is a perfect opportunity to do the snow on this page. Before I begin, I'm just going to show you some examples of previous pages that I've colored using the technique that I'm going to show you. So let me do that. The first page I have to show you is in Romantic Country by Erie, and it is this mountain pass page, which is actually quite similar to Kerby's page. So we've also got the sunset sky and then the snowy mountains. And here we've got the snow on the ground. And we've also got the river, which is in Kerby's page as well. And I'm going to try to get a very similar effect with the reflection of the sun onto the river. Another page in Erie's book that I did is not really very similar. It is the Christmas gifts page. This is a completely different kind of snow. This is much whiter because it's a bright sunny day. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we're not really going to be doing this kind of snow. And one more page that I've got is in Winter Wonderland with artwork by Teresa Goodrich. This one is a lot more similar. So it is this page, the stroll in the snow. And again, we've got the sunset sky, but here we've got piles of snow on a path. So it's also a little bit different, but we are going to try and do a similar technique in Kerby's page. Right, so those are the pages that I've colored before. And now on to some key points about coloring snow. So let's take a look at our page. As you can see, Kerby has given us a lot of indications for shadows. Now, the first thing to keep in mind when coloring snow is that it doesn't matter what medium you use. You can use paints, you can use pastels, you can use soft pastels, oil pastels, you can use Inktense, you can use neocolors, you can use just pencils. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is the colors that you choose. Another thing to keep in mind is that you don't color the snow, rather you color the shadows. So that is actually where it's very useful that Kerby has given us the shadow areas. Now the colors you choose for these shadows depends on a couple of factors. First of all, what time of day is your page? If it is a bright, clear day, then you're going to use cold blue colors. If it is a cloudy day, you're going to use gray colors. And if it is dawn or dusk, like our page is sunrise or sunset, then you're also going to use lavender or purpley colors. Okay, so that is actually what we're going to do on our page. I am going to be using Inktense and Prismacolor pencils to do the snow on this page. And another important thing to keep in mind is you are going to need some form of white acrylic. So either a tube of white acrylic or an acrylic pen like Artristro or Posca or a Languau gel pen. Okay, so that's what you're going to also need. I'm just going to show you the colors that I'm going to be using for this particular page. So as I said, on this page, we do have a dusky or a dawn page, depending on which way you look at it. So we're going to be using Inktense. As I said, I'm going to be using Peacock Blue, which has a purplish tint to it. We're going to use Iris Blue, and we're going to use Bright Blue. And in terms of Prismacolors, we're going to use Blue Violet Lake. It also is a blue with a purplish tint. We're going to use Blue Slate. It also has a slight purplish tint to it. Sky Blue Light and Dark Indigo for the deepest shadows. So yeah, let's get started. I'm zoomed in now, and what we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side of the page, and I'm going to put the peacock blue in Inktense in the shadow areas where Kerby has indicated. Now, if you are going to use some other medium, pencil or Neocolor 2 or oil pastel, you just take your darkest color that is closest to this Inktense color and put it down in the shadows. Okay, so yeah, just lightly put it down in these shadow areas. Okay. You don't have to be the neatest, but I do like to just go over the shadow that Kerby's given. Okay, here as well. Keep in mind that when we activate it, it's going to be lighter, okay? And you can also, not only in the shadow areas, but you can see where some of these snow drifts overlap each other. You can also put a little bit over there. Because each of these snow drifts casts shadows on the ones in behind it or in front of it. Okay. Okay, now here we have these trees, and you also put shadows around the objects. Okay. So you just follow the contours of the object and you put the shadows around. Okay. Here you've got the colors in between. Okay. Here too. Okay. So, yeah, I'm just putting in the colors. I think I'm going to put on some music while I do this. Right, so as you can see, I have finished layering in the peacock blue, only in the shadow areas. And now I'm going to take the iris blue and I'm going to go a little bit into the peacock blue, but not all the way, and a little bit into the highlight area, but only a really, really small amount because we want to leave much of this white, because as you may remember, I said at the beginning, you color the shadows and not the snow itself. Also, in these areas that are closer to the tree and underneath the objects, I'm not going to put in this iris blue because these are shadow areas and they need to be darker. And when we put in the pencil, we will darken it up even further. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to activate with water, and we're going to see what it looks like before we put pencil. Okay. As you go along, if you see that there are areas where you think there should be more peacock blue, you can always add in the peacock blue. a bit more. So here, for example, if you want to add in a few more shadows. Sometimes you only notice these things when you're going in with another color. Okay. Try to leave as much of the white as possible. Okay, so for example, here we have these trees, and this little bit here is snow, but it's in the deepest shadow areas. So I'm only going to put the peacock blue here too. And here in between these branches of these trees. Okay. Okay, I think that's tree. Okay, back to the iris blue. Right, so we have our two shades down. We have our peacock blue and our iris blue on top, and we still have our glowing highlight. You're getting a glow because of this. And another thing that I wanted to mention, in case I didn't mention it earlier, and that is because we have a sunset sky, we have a light source, and there is going to be a reflection of this light onto the top of the snow. So when we put the pencil down, I'm also going to be putting some lighter colors. So whenever you have a light source like a sun or a lantern or an electric light or any other kind of light source, you can always put a yellow glow a little bit onto the top of the snow for the reflection of that. So we will be adding that when we do the pencil. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to activate this Inktense. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the highlight, so I'm not going to put any water on the top, and I'm going to blend from light to dark. Okay, so my water is going to pool, yes, in the shadow areas, which will darken it up. Okay, so let's zoom in again and get to that. So a couple of things that I want to note at this point, and that is, if you've been noticing, I've been following the contour lines that Kerby has given us. I've been making sure to keep my highlight. Also keep in mind that the Inktense will dry lighter than it is when it's activated. And another thing that I also want to note is that here in the shadow areas where the trees are casting shadows onto the snow, it's going to be much darker in there. And one final thing is that where you've got an area that you have already activated, in order to prevent it from the paper from tearing or having too much water on it, I don't always go over the areas. Rather, I move on to a different area that's dry, activate there. And if later on I see that more activation needs to happen in an area where I have already done, I go back in to activate once it's a little bit more dry. This prevents the paper from becoming saturated with water and possibly tearing. Okay, so let's carry on with our activating. Okay, so I have activated all of the Inktense. Now, I don't know if you were noticing, but there are some areas where I struggle to keep the highlight, okay? So for example, where there is a very small highlight and quite a large shadow area, sometimes it's not easy to keep the highlight, but that is okay, because one thing about Inktense is that after it dries, you can add white on top and it will bring back the highlight really nicely. So even if you've lost your highlight in a few places, don't worry about it. We can always put the highlight back in with white Prismacolor or with acrylic marker or with acrylic paint. So, and we are going to be putting that onto this page. So don't worry if you've lost your highlight every once in a while. Okay, we're going to let this side dry and we're going to move over to this side of the page and do exactly the same thing. Now on this side of the page, there is like an elevated area with a sort of a hill or a mountain. So here is like the hill or mountain, and then there's the snow on top. So this part is going to be a bit darker and this part is going to be a bit lighter. Okay, so yeah, we're going to do that now. So I'm going back in with my peacock blue and we're going to put in our shadow areas. Okay, I have a feeling that I wasn't on camera for a lot of that, so I apologize. All I've been doing is I've been shading the areas that Kerby has given us. So over here and over here and over here and around this little bunny and the snowman, and over here and around underneath her, because she's casting a shadow onto this little bit of snow. Okay, and I noticed that I accidentally colored the club. So there are two options for these hidden objects that Kerby has. On this page, there are two hidden objects. One is this club and the other is the gauntlet on this side of the page. Now, I'm keeping them in. If you don't want to keep them in, you can color them as snow. So you can just put in shadows and you can white them out with acrylic paint later on. But I'm actually going to keep the club because I think it suits the page. So I have accidentally put some Inktense onto this part of the club and I'm just going to erase it. All right. So yeah, don't worry about it. If you've made a mistake, you can erase Inktense while it's dry. And also once we activate it, it will lighten as well. So, and we will put color on top, so it'll be fine. Okay, so back with our peacock blue. Again, I apologize if some of that wasn't on camera. Right, so we're just going to carry on with our shading of the shadow areas. Right, so I'm done with my layer of the peacock blue, and notice that in the heavily shaded areas, I've put a heavier pressure of pencil, and then I've lightened up my pressure for the areas that are not as heavily shaded. And now we're going to go in with our iris blue and just do exactly what we did on the other side of the page and go a little bit into the highlight. Right, so now we have our two colors of Inktense down, and as I said before, this bit is more heavily shaded because it is in the shadow, it's underneath this owl, and it also seems to be some sort of rock that this bit of snow is on top of. So here it's lighter, and here it's darker, and then when we shade with pencil, we are going to put a little bit of yellow here to have the reflection of the sunlight. Okay, so now I'm just going to activate that, and then we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to come back and put in the pencil. Right, so this is what our page is looking like, and I'm very pleased with it. So we have our highlight areas, we have our shadow areas, and now we're going to deepen those up with pencils. So we're going to use sky blue light, we're going to use blue slate, we're going to use blue violet lake, and we're going to use dark indigo for the very, very deepest shadows. And of course, we're also going to use white, and then after that, we're going to put in white acrylic paint. So this stage doesn't really require that much coloring because we really want to avoid most of the white areas and only color in the shadows. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with my deepest shadow. So it's Blue Indigo 901, and only in those areas where we want it to be exceedingly dark. Okay. And one nice thing about Inktense is that it gives us nice tooth to the paper. Okay, so as you can see, the Inktense has done most of the work for us, and all we need to do is deepen up shadows and blend them out. So I've put down the dark indigo, and now I'm going to go in with the blue slate, and I'm only going to blend it out. Now in these darker areas where I've put it down, I'm not going to blend here because I don't want it to be any lighter. Okay, so but here, for example, I can blend it out just a little bit, making sure to leave my highlight. And as I said before, you can always put highlights back in with white. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, so I have my tiny white Prismacolor. I like to use my pencils until they're completely gone. So here, for example, I want the highlight, so I just go in with white and I blend. And there you go. See, the white has come back. And it also gives us a nice glow. So here as well, just blending out some of that indigo. and then blend more with white. Sometimes you don't even have to put a pencil. You can just put the white Prismacolor right on top. Okay, but here, for example, right, and you just go through the page, putting in your shadows, putting back your highlights, and enjoy. I find this process very relaxing. Now, if you want a darker highlight, yes, in some shadow areas, you can also blend with sky blue light instead of white. So here, for example, in the shadow areas, I'm blending out with sky blue light because I want it to be slightly darker. But then over here, I want it to be slightly lighter. And you could also go with the shading that the Inktense has given you. Right, so that's the process, and as you can see, our snow is developing very nicely. And what I'm going to do now is I am just going to finish the rest of the page off camera, but in exactly the same way. And then when I'm done, I will come back and show you how to put in the acrylic marker. Right, so we are finished with the snow, and I just want to point out a couple of things that I did because some of this was done off camera. So on this side, I did deeper shadows here, and I left a highlight in the middle. And in this area here, I left a large highlight because Kerby had not put any indications of shadows. Also, my snow came out a little bit more blue than I had intended. I wanted it to be more purplish blue, but that's okay. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow and accept the result. And now what we're going to do is we are going to put in the white to indicate the lightness of the snow. So you can see here, let me just zoom in for a second. So you can see here, I have already put in the white, and I'm going to discuss how I do that next. So let's do that. Okay, so there are three methods that I usually use to create the white for the snow. The first method is to use white acrylic paint. This is the Art Creation by Talon's brand, and I also use a really, really small round brush. This is a Robert Simmons Sapphire, and it is 2/0, and as you can see, it's really, really thin. Another technique that I use is to use an acrylic paint marker. This is the Artristro brand. Thule Art also have a very similar pen, and as you can see, it is the kind that you shake really well and then you pump to prime it, and then the paint comes out. I do not use a brush marker because acrylic brush markers are a little bit more transparent and I want a really strong thick line. And another option is to use the Languau calligraphy gel pens. These ones are more of a gel nib, yes, and the paint flows really, really nicely through these pens. So let's just talk a little bit about why I'm going to choose this option over the other two. First of all, the Artristro pens and the Thule Art pens, sometimes when you put it down over pencil, it changes color. So for example, let me show you. From A Million Baby Animals by Lulu Mayo. I just recently finished this page, and as you can see, I used the Artristro paint pen, and it has a little bit of a pink tint to it because it went over the pink color. And yeah, I'm not sure you can see it on camera, but with the naked eye, I can see it. And this is not a problem on this page because the background is pink. However, it also has the tendency to react to blue colors and turn pink. So I do not want that effect on this page, and therefore I am not going to be using the Artristro paint marker. And as I said, the Thule Art does the same thing. I'm also not going to be using the technique with the acrylic paint, because sometimes what happens with the acrylic paint is you get really, really thick paint onto the page, which is fine under certain circumstances. So, for example, in a page from Winter Wonderland, okay, so here I did want to get that thick effect. And so I did use in certain places, like over here and here on the branches, I did use the acrylic paint because I wanted a thicker look to the snow. But on this page, I'm not interested in that. I want to have a thinner look. All right, so I'm going to use the Languau calligraphy gel pen in white. Okay, so let me show you how I do that. And for this, we're going to zoom in a little bit. Hold on one sec. Okay, so I usually just take a scrap piece of paper on the side and make sure the pen is flowing. I really like these Languau pens because they don't tend to clog up and they flow really smoothly, right? So that's what we're going to do. Right, so I just trace over the lines. If you want, you can make it thicker or thinner. If you see that you want thicker looking lines, you can use the acrylic paint. Yeah, and then you just go over all of the lines where the edges of the snowbanks are. Okay, and that's what you do throughout the whole page. And you would use exactly the same technique if you used the acrylic pen or if you used the thicker acrylic paint out of the tube. Okay, sometimes you see it stops and I just go over a little bit to thicken up the line. These Languau pens are marvelous. I'm very impressed with them. And as you can see, it's not changing the color of the snow. So I really like these pens for this. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to go over the rest of the page and I'm going to do that and I'll be back. Okay, so I am done putting in all of the white gel pen. As you can see, I also put in some dots and some snowflakes where Kerby had indicated that. Later on, I might go back in with some glitter gel pen or some stickles and add more embellishments, but that will be at the end once the page is completely finished. For now, the last step is just to add in the reflection from the sunlight onto the snow. I'm only going to put that in very limited places because I don't want to overdo it. And for that, I'm going to be using Deco Yellow, Deco Pink, and Cream. Okay, so for example, I would mainly put these embellishments in areas where there is a lot of highlight, okay? So for example, and also the sun is like shining down on this area. So we're going to put it here. I'm going to take the Deco Yellow and just very lightly put some of this Deco Yellow into the highlight areas where it's very obvious that the sun is reflecting on the snow. Okay, but only in these areas. All right, there we go. Here as well, but very, very lightly, just a touch. Okay, there we go. Just on these areas. I might not need the cream. Right. Over here. All right. Over here, I'm just thinking it's only going to be on this side of the page because this side of the page is already darker because we've got the gray sky. Although I think we might want to put some over on here, just the tops of these snowy areas, not under the bridge because the bridge is casting a shadow, and not on the far right side of the page because it's already the cloudy sky. Okay, I'm wondering if I even need the deco pink. I'm thinking not. Oh, I like that. That has come out really nicely. Let's put some more over here. Right, and now we are zoomed out and we can get the whole effect of the gradient sky and the snow with the sunlight reflections. I'm just going to move the page across because I can't get it all into the frame of the camera. So here we have the sunlight reflecting on the snow, and on this side we have our darker shadows, and here we don't have the sunlight reflected because it's the gray sky. Okay, so our next step is going to be the mountains. So as I said at the very beginning of the series, I like to do the large elements first. So the sky, the snow, and next we're going to do the mountains, and that will be in a different video. So thank you very much for joining me as I have colored snow, and I hope that you found this helpful. Join me again for the video where I do the mountains. Thanks again, and bye for now.